Darkness swallow my sight. Endless miles no end in sight. Engines screaming, souls collide. Lost on this nightmare ride. Concrete serpents turning cold. Travel secrets, tales untold. Highway ghosts, they haunt the lane. Echoes of my fear and pain. Concrete serpents looking cold. Travel secrets, tales untold. Highway ghosts, they haunt the lane. Echoes of my fear and pain.
Good evening, Nightmare Roadshow crew. It is I, the one and only, okay, well, I have other people here, Messy Jessie, and I'm super excited about our episode tonight. You guys, it's going to make you question reality and your childhood, as it has mine. Anyway, I am happy to introduce our CSI agent, Dirty Birdie.
CSI?
Okay, whatever.
We're having
CIE.
tonight.
Oh, CSI.
CSI.
Whatever
it's all
CSI
the
is, it must be the effect.
I'd like to introduce strange and mysterious
SOS. And I am here introducing our friend, the one and only Nighthawk. And how are you doing
I guess
tonight?
that should be the artist formerly known as.
The artist formerly.
Artist.
So,
But did you say of the world at the end of the song?
see.
Every time.
Jesse, what are we
Yes.
talking about? We're talking about what?
Well, we're talking about some interesting things that have recently started coming up, and it's super strange. It is called the Mandela Effect. You guys, you're going to question your whole childhood like I have again for like the 20th time today. Nighthawk, what is going on here? You have some interesting stuff?
Well, I do. I tend to go down rabbit holes. And if anybody has listened to the Speaking of Spirits podcast, you know that when I go down the rabbit holes, I go pretty far.
Did you find Bugs Bunny in China?
Almost. Well, honestly, there's a Warner Brothers Mandela Effect with the beginning screen of Bugs Bunny.
Yep.
So it is everywhere, and it ranges from big things to little things.
Describe what it is.
Well, it's something where everybody thinks one thing is something, and the company comes out and says, no, it's not. So one of the big ones right now is Fruit of the Loom, and them having a cornucopia on their tag. And it ranges.
Okay, so that's
That's the one. And it
here's
kind of
a
ranges all
tag
over
and
the
a
place.
T-shirt or something, and that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this clearly shows the cornucopia, and this is for people not knowing what a cornucopia is. That's this thing. It looks like a basket or something.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of basket. It's whatever you
Yeah.
carry. I thought it was corn. That's okay.
Yeah.
I
It's a
must be hungry.
copia of corn.
The interesting thing about this one in particular is the company came out and said that it never was so. They released a timetable and a graph, and they countered it. But people have been digging in their closets and finding old Fruit of the Loom clothes, and sure enough, it's right there. So what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, why exactly would a company lie, knowing that there's probably somebody out there with those labels in their Fruit of the Loom?
Well, that's a good question. And you can boil that down to a whole lot of things. The thing that I think is most interesting is I'm a big World War II buff, and I try to get as many perspectives as I can about World War II. And something that was really used as a tactic to help the Nazi Party was something called gaslighting. And gaslighting has taken on many different meanings, I guess, over the years.
Mhm.
But when you break down gaslighting and the Mandela Effect, there's a whole lot of similarities. And gaslighting is kind of blatantly in your face, not true. And
Right.
they're staunch in, well, it's the truth. And in all of the effect with gaslighting, it had to do with manipulation of resources and power. And if you break that down to companies here, is it about that? I don't know. Maybe. I have a theory or two that I'll bring up near the end of the podcast that makes me not sleep well at night.
And Dirty Birdie, you were saying that there's a theory out there that it has something to do with maybe parallel universes, like without
Three.
getting. Well, I know, but without getting into all of those, but that parallel universe one is kind of interesting.
Right. So the parallel universes theory is that our universe as it is has already expanded out here. And then a newer, younger universe is now expanding, and it's getting just close enough to make a bridge to our universe, and it's nearly exactly the same as ours, so we're getting bleed through from that universe.
It's almost kind of like what we talked about in a previous show, where they were doing a study for like ghost hunts, and how I talked about how parallels can meet each other in different times. And
Oh, yeah.
and I remember this because it's like they put a ball in the middle of the floor and put powder on it to see if a ghost from a different time can actually move that. And it was pretty interesting to see that the ball was really hot, but the surroundings were cold. And usually they happen like in a door thresh or somewhere where there's a threshold of something to cross through. And it almost is kind of like that.
The whole concept of, well, number one, gaslighting, that's freaky enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's freaky enough that somebody wants to screw with all of our heads. But the parallel
There's
universe,
a whole movie on it.
I know, but the parallel universe thing, that yeah, I don't like to think about these things because it's. I'm gone.
No, you're back.
No, you're back.
I'm gone. Okay. God dang it. I don't. Yeah. Okay. What's going on with all of our energy here that I'm disappearing constantly? What? So what? Yeah. What? There was some other Mandela effects, right? So,
there's a bunch of them.
We talked about what, Coca-Cola, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola and companies changed their labels every so often. But the big one with Coca-Cola was the dash in it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks
Okay.
don't remember there being a dash. And Coke itself said that they didn't have a dash, but there was a mark in the label. And so there's a whole bunch of people who remember a dash, me being one of those. And
Oh yeah.
it's and
Yeah, it's always been that way. I saw it.
well, I thought so too. But they said that it's been a newer addition that the dash has been there. In the past, it didn't. And like the older Coke symbols, I had one up here, but I lost it. In their timeline, the older ones did not have a dash, and most, me being one of them, always remember seeing a dash in the Coca-Cola symbols.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me share
Yes.
share this screen because this goes all the way back to the 1887. There's a dash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly. So, I don't understand why a company would lie about their logo. I don't get it. I don't understand where that benefits them. Just to keep their name
They
in
could
the
lose their trademark.
news?
They could lose their trademark.
Well, there
I don't know.
definitely legalities with those things, and each one should be. Ford, for example, I remember when I was young, my grandpa had an old Ford, and the Ford had a little squiggly thing on the F,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not claimed. So, as far as the bigger companies doing it, I don't know.
I wonder if it was like a production mess up or something, and they're like, "Oh, we need to like back the truck up." Like really.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they're like, whoops, this is not true.
Yeah.
Or
And
if you think about it, maybe it's the government. I mean, I hate to throw the government into it. Maybe there's some things the government's doing, like, they're like, no, this didn't happen.
Well, the Mandela Effect, as it's said, it started making the rounds in about 2010, just as it being known as the Mandela Effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing if you do a little bit of computering, the things that started to happen in 2010. And one of those things is one of the first versions, if you will, of AI. And that AI, when it started right then, they gave it some interesting tasks. And if you move forward and you look at AI from 2010 and what AI is now, it's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And with everything, well, I can just say I'm a dad and I have kids. And I know that my toddlers tend to push buttons. And they do push those buttons to figure out where the boundaries are. And I personally believe that most of the Mandela effect is the AI system trying to figure out where its boundaries are with humans. That is my theory. And the more I sniff down this route, the more it smells good to me.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what's happening. And I believe that the AI, it can find it is a very useful tool because it can make people distracted, can make them in an uproar. You can see which people are staunch in what they believe and what they'll say. Like this particular experiment, we'll call it, I think could be one of the most important things that AI is doing to us to figure out who we are.
I agree. I mean, there is some logic in that.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, and it goes from simple things to really serious things. Colleen and I were talking about World War II and stories that my grandpa had and stories that her dad had. and how a lot of those stories aren't on the internet or denied.
They're
And-
denied. And there's physical proof that these things happened. It's not, and one of the ones what we're talking about was the shelling. So when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, that's not the only place in America that they really were attacking. They were shelling the west coast of California. And there's actually scars, there's remnants of that shelling that happened when you right below Santa Barbara on the cliffside that goes all the way down to LA, that mountain range there's scars of the shelling. And then another thing that they did was they were sending out
Balloon bombs?
Hoping that all 500 of them would hit their targets or hit a target. But apparently, I think the only death was that of like a 12-year-old or something like that in Oregon, where one hit came down and it happened to.
There was a group of people that died from it. Yeah. It landed in somewhere, and a group of people went to check it out, and it detonated and killed a group of people. There's a monument of it somewhere.
And but now history has erased that, like it didn't happen.
So I was talking with my daughter about this the last couple days, and she made me realize a very scary implication of that. So here in Idaho, there were a lot of camps that they sent Japanese folks to.
Yep.
And she says that her class was learning about that just this last week, and they blamed it all on racism. And I was like, oh, no, that was not why. And so I had to explain to her what was happening and why they wanted to group the Japanese folks into a place just to protect the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd be calling the teacher on that one.
Well, it's not the teacher, it's the curriculum.
It's correct. That is correct.
That's just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if those things are taken away from history, that Japan was a threat to mainland, how much easier is it to put people against each other for racism?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So the thing that actually kind of led us down this was we were talking about weather manipulation, speaking of spirits. And when you boil down like the weather manipulation, you have an action that happens months before. And because of that action, in a few months down the road, you can run probabilities. And again, I boil this down to AI. Whether I'm right or wrong, you be the judge. But if the AI gives a really high probability that if you do this, this is going to happen, and whether that be with weather manipulation or people manipulation.
Yeah.
You can run the scenarios and figure out the outcome that you most likely want to have or have happen. And so that really is the scary part about like all of these scary things we talk about is it seems like that there is an power, whatever that is, and what do they want? And the systems that they're using to get it. And it seems to be more blatant with weather, with the Mandela Effect, with all of these things. And you have to really take a backseat look and look wide. And if you really look, you can see the same patterns in just about everything. And so what is the common denominator, and what does that mean for everybody?
So do you guys think it could be something with like, you know, how we're starting to get more and more sightings of, UFOs? Do you think that this has been going on way earlier than now? You said this kind of started in 2010, but I think this may have started earlier, and we as people have kind of pushed it off and said, no, that's fake news. It's like those, magazines that we used to read, like The Sun, and you see all these flashing, And
Weekly
it makes
World
you
News,
wonder.
the Sun, all that stuff. Yeah, I used to see those. Oh, National Enquirer, all over.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
just blow it off. And what, 30 years later, now we're like, okay, yeah, okay, maybe they have a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that's why it's fun to be me right now. So
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I was called a conspiracy theorist by a lot of people, and most all of what I was following and
Hmm.
the folks that I talked to, I have been correct. And really, when you boil it down to like the National Enquirer and things like
Hmm.
that, I think back to do you remember Men in Black with
Yeah.
Yes.
Will
The little
Smith?
thing. They're like,
Yeah. So that was their news source. Like he went was like, that's what we're going after. And like and it boils down to gaslighting yet again, and where that division was between, and if there is a division between gaslighting and the Mandela effect, or if it's the same thing. If your argument is that it's the same thing, then gaslighting has easily been going on since the 30s.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like my childhood was ruined when I looked up a few of them.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking about Ed McMahon.
Oh my gosh.
That's a
Yeah. He
never
huge
existed.
one for like pop culture at the time in the day, right?
Uh-huh.
It was Publishers Clearing
Publisher
the House.
Clearing
He's going to
House.
show up at
Yeah.
your doorstep, and he was never on the Publishers Clearing House, and we all swore he was, but he
Yeah.
was on American Family Publisher
Yeah.
instead, and they did the same thing. They had prize things, and he'd show up. But how does everybody associate him with Publishers Clearing House? Like
Because
everybody.
when I was a kid, I remember seeing those envelopes and wishing my parents would win the money so I can buy my 1 cent albums from the Columbia House.
Right.
Hey,
Do you
yeah,
think it's possible, like, word association with that one? Because they're both.
Yeah. I-
There's
probably.
publishers and clearing in the house and stuff like
American
that.
Family Publishers, Publishers
Yes.
Clearinghouse, and American Family Publishers. But I don't remember ever seeing a commercial for American Family Publishers. I only remember the mailers and all of the commercials of people winning for Publishers Clearinghouse. So I can't figure out how, even if you go back and you look at Ed McMahon was the co-host of the Tonight
America's Got it's like America's Got Talent, but I
No,
can't
no, no,
remember what it was called.
Show. No, it was a talk show with help me out here.
I think it's the Tonight Show.
Tonight
And I
Show?
think you were talking about stars or something with the stars.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was wasn't he the co-host of the Tonight Show? Ed McMahon.
He was.
And
Yep.
and they would even joke about him on Publishers Clearinghouse, Ed McMahon.
Yeah.
They would joke. I've watched some clips on that just last week when we started talking about this topic, and I'm like, how did the whole country confuse the two? I don't understand. I don't.
That's
It's
My
interesting.
mind is blown when I think about this stuff. There isn't one person
Yeah.
I talked to in the last week who doesn't recognize that Ed McMahon was not on Publishers Clearinghouse.
He's an alien.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, there's been some theories about certain things, like anyway, that's a show for another time.
And then there's the Monopoly guy with the monocle. Everybody remembers seeing him with the monocle.
Everybody saw him with the monocle. Mickey Mouse
Yep.
with suspenders. I remember clearly seeing that image.
Yep.
I don't think I ever have, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you got two things. One that blew me away was are Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen. If you listen to We Are the Champions, people say that he said of the world at the end, but he didn't. You know how many times I listened to that song? And I still feel like he says of the world.
What did he say?
He said, I'm sorry, let me find it because I was moving at other things too. It's just basically he's saying that we are the champions, and then
He never says of the world at the end.
No time for losers because we are the champions. No, he said of the world.
Of the world.
Yeah. I heard of the world.
They said he didn't. He's never said that. Or saying
So
that.
everybody has to go to Spotify and listen to Queen.
Yes.
And listen to that song. Because this is...
Well, and you... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, but I'm listening to it right now in my head. I could swear he says of the world at the end.
Well,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, they're saying he didn't. And I remember watching this.
All right, I got to bring up the lyrics
about
now.
That. Yep. And then Mr. Rogers, you guys. This is my childhood. And, you know, we talk about how he was like, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. But the lyric actually goes, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. No.
He said the neighborhood.
The.
He never said this.
Apparently
that didn't
not.
make any sense.
He said this neighborhood.
Okay, I'm looking up the lyrics right now on
That's
Genius.com.
That's it, I'm calling the cops.
And he does not say, on the outro, he doesn't say of the world at the end. It's the verse before.
But I swear to God, I've heard it at the end of a song.
I wonder if he did it on like a live version and then that got played more airtime or something.
I don't know.
Possible, yeah. It became like a after game theme song.
Oh
For
yeah,
a lot of people.
And then Nighthawk, you were saying something about the Berenstain Bears or something like that.
Well, the Berenstain Bear books, they had two different spellings. One ended with en, and I think the other one an.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fun one because I don't know, I could never really pronounce the name, but I remember saying Berenstain. And
I remember it.
Yeah.
I've never seen those books all over the place growing up as a little kid in doctor's offices and other people's houses, and it was always spelled the same.
Yeah. Although SOS has a hard time with the illustration.
Yeah, I don't like the illustrations. I think they're ugly. I'm going to share them.
The bear don't look like bears. I don't.
They're just awful
I don't know.
looking things. I don't like them at all. I think they're creepy looking. So.
Well, and another book that I loved was Curious George. And
oh yeah, I love Curious George.
Would you say that Curious George did or did not have a tail?
He had a tail.
He had a tail, didn't he?
Nope. Curious George was an ape. He was a chimp.
He wasn't a monkey?
But doesn't monkeys have tails?
Monkeys have tails, apes don't.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that? He was a monkey.
He's a chimp.
A monkey.
He was a
There's
chimp.
no way that you can tell me that this thing is an ape. Hold on. There's no way. Look at this. That's a monkey. Hold on here. Let me pull this thing up. I'm sorry,
he was a
but
small chimp.
Oh my gosh. Or there's another one, a show, I Love Lucy. And do you remember he says, Lucy, you've got some explaining to do.
Some
he didn't say that.
He didn't say
Explain that if you can, Lucy. Explain. That's what he says.
No way.
Yep, it's true.
No, there's episodes where he says that. Because we would
Exactly.
crack up.
I love Lucy though.
Okay.
She's my
This
spirit.
is just wrong. What are they doing to us? I don't like it at all.
What was the other
I don't
one?
know.
One of my favorite ones. It was Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker.
Oh. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
doesn't
Where'd it
say,
go?
Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father.
Oh yeah, no, I am your father. Yeah,
And
Yeah.
not one person I know says that. They all say, Luke, I am your father when we're reciting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then was it C3PO? No. Yeah, C3PO has a silver leg.
Yep.
In the movies, one silver leg, but
one silver leg.
he's always depicted as having
all
two
gold.
gold legs.
Yeah.
Copper, gold. I can't remember. Gold.
They're gold. Yeah, but if you go back and look at images, I never ever noticed a silver leg on him in the movies. I'm like, really? How did I go through all those movies and not notice that?
I mean, I remember my people, like the little bears or whatever. What are they? Walkies or something?
Oh,
Those
what?
are my people. Those little bears, like they were in Star Wars. And they were like people of the trees, but they were like a bear. Maybe they were the Bernstein bears. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You hurt my
They
head.
were my people.
Isn't that
I'm just
Ewok?
saying.
Makes my head
Yeah,
hurt.
Oh yeah, Ewoks.
Ewoks. You broke my brain. You broke my brain with the bear people, and just.
And that's coming from a Star Trek guy. So.
Oh, dirty birdie, just breathe. It's fine.
I just tell myself they were little cannibals.
I don't know what
That's why they were eating
the whole
stormtroopers at the
concept
end of the
of
movie.
everybody misremembering, like everybody misremembering something, doesn't sit well with me. I don't think we are. I just don't think we are.
But
I think on some things we are.
Yeah.
Tim and I were looking at pictures of the JFK assassination because there's a big before the show. I
was just reading that.
There's a big to-do on that one. It said that most people remember the Cadillac having 2 rows of seats. That's it. But when we looked at it, we clearly, and that's what I remember, 2 rows of seats. But when you look at the Cadillac and the picture that we saw, that's pretty graphic, and I'm not going to show it because it's so graphic, but because it was the moment of impact when the bullet hit him, there's 3 rows of seats. There was a couple in front of him. Now, Tim remembers the couple. I do not.
Yeah, I don't
the
either.
Governor of Texas.
Yeah.
Say again, Tim?
It was the governor of Texas.
Yeah. Sorry, Nighthawk. Oh, blew your cover. Yeah, you clearly remembered the third, that middle row between the Secret Service and the president. But in my head, I always went to 2 rows of seats. I didn't remember them. It wasn't until we started looking through a whole bunch of different pictures that it aligned perfectly with the really graphic image that we're not going to show because I can't believe I can't believe they're showing it. But it was a side view and you could see the seats.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, I think people were more paying attention to what was happening at the moment on the president, too, if you really think about it. It's kind of how we, as humans, focus in on certain things.
And then, of course, at the moment of impact, the couple in front of them, the governor and his wife, ducked down so you can't even see them. You can barely see them. I mean, you can see the outline of his jacket a little bit, his back. But in most respects, you look at that and you're like, okay, that's JFK. That's just part of his coat or something. But it wasn't. It was that other couple. But they'd hit the deck, obviously. So you don't even see them.
I don't remember if the bullet stayed in him or if it exited, but the bullet went through JFK and then into the governor.
Oh, it did strike the governor. That's what I was asking you about beforehand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's crazy to me.
and the second row of seats are just perfectly built that you can't really see them too much. You see the driver, the passenger, and then there's this thing that has a second row of seats and then them. So it looks like a convertible, just a little bigger. Just I was looking at that the other day, and I'm like, that is weird because I remember it just being like like a 4-door convertible. I didn't see the second row of seats in front of them because just the way it was designed.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between limousines and stretch limousines. And limousines have that second row, but a lot of times it's a foldable seat. And
Yeah.
Lincolns, like that one, had them, and so did the Cadillacs about that era. And then they started developing the stretch limos that had all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think actually they called it a jump seat, if I remember right. I think they got
I think
that
so,
out of
if
it.
I remember right.
Yep. Yeah, I'll have to ask
Yep.
my mom about it. She was I don't know how old she was, but she was there when it happened.
She was there in Texas?
No, she was
Oh,
around.
Alive
She
and
was
kicking.
she was there.
Not
so,
deep in the heart of Texas.
I was going to say, if
Well, I'm gonna
I-
have the real question if I ask my mom. Hey, mom, where were you when Kennedy was shot? I was on a grassy knoll. No.
Yeah.
I remember my mom. That was one of the big days that, and here's
Yeah.
you can see clearly the Secret Service in the front, and then the middle row and the last row.
Oh.
I know, so sad.
But I don't
So,
think anybody really paid attention, you know. Like I said, I think it's normal for us to pay attention to what happened to JFK than what's going on around him.
Yeah. It's just, it's weird how our brains work, I think, but I still think that some of this stuff is, I don't understand why companies would do it. I don't think that we all have mass hallucinations. I think things are we're being manipulated somehow in some of this stuff. Obviously, some things we just don't remember correctly, or like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, we're keying into the critical element of what happened that day, not the second row seats. But Fruit of the Loom, what's the point? What?
Yeah.
Just say, yeah, we changed the label. We didn't like the cornucopia. Okay, I think we'd all be okay. Who cares? Don't
Yeah.
lie about it. Why would
Companies
you lie
change
about
things
it?
every time.
Well,
It's like
I mean,
Kit Kat versus
that's really
Kit Kat.
the big-
I don't know.
That's really the big issue, because manipulation isn't a new thing. Manipulation has been around since the beginning, honestly. The problem is,
Yep.
what's the intention with the manipulation?
Yeah. That's what's bothersome, is what's behind it all. What's the point? I don't like it.
I think it's
Bertie, you brought
reprogramming
up
the human mind.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, if you can manipulate people into questioning their own reality, then they're more likely to be more manipulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there's two ways, I think, anyway, that there's those two groups. You can have those people who accept the manipulation and they question things, or you have the other group. And that other group is people who believe themselves and refuse to be manipulated. And like when you have those two groups of people figured out who's the dangerous one? And like when you start boiling it down from there, it gets really scary the further down the rabbit hole you go. And it's interesting how everything kind of lines up that way too, into grouping people and then the models of the people in that group. And it's something.
So when you go down this
Mhm.
rabbit hole, do you meet the caterpillar?
No, no, you don't. There was a nice girl named Alice, though.
I don't think she's very nice.
I don't think so
Cookies.
either. I think that LSD trip is yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Tim has a way of so the rabbit holes that you go down, then he gets me thinking, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. You know, I'll be dead set against him at the beginning of a show, and by the end of it, he's got me back around. I'm like, holy crap! Because yeah, there's a lot of deep thinking going on there. What is that? There was an SNL skit on that, I think, on Deep Thoughts. Remember those? Saturday
Oh,
Night Live,
yes.
Deep
I
Thoughts.
remember that.
Yeah.
No,
That's what I always...
Jerry Springer did that too.
Deep Thoughts? What?
Yes. Or like, what was it? Was it like a deep thought? Yeah, I think it was. Like he did like deep thoughts at the end. He goes,
Yeah, Jerry Springer did that. Yep, I remember that.
Yep.
And then Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy on it on SNL.
Well, Jerry Springer ripped it off from SNL, I'm sure, because SNL was out a long time before Jerry Springer was. But yeah,
Yep.
But they were funny. But it always, yeah, when you start thinking about this stuff, it's kind of spooky, and I don't like it. I don't like it. You know what I mean? It's just it's creepy. I don't.
Well,
Stop,
and that's
don't do this to us. Just leave the.
so. That's
tell us
why
the
I
truth.
really like paranormal.
I don't like
Paranormal
liars.
does not scare me. Living people scare me a lot.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Exactly.
This type of stuff. I'm like, how far would people go just to be jerks and evil?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can stand in your local DMV and that'll tell you.
No kidding.
Okay, which DMV?
Listen.
This one's not bad. Now, if you told me I had to go to Chicago and go to the DMV, I'd
You
be
don't want
like,
to go anywhere near like Sacramento or anything. Forget about it.
Right. Yeah,
But
forget
even ours drives me crazy. I go up to like where Jesse is, or I go into another little town because even ours is not that great. So
I don't know.
anyway.
Sometimes we get the bleed throughs.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a bananas topic, and there's so many videos out there that you guys can watch on this stuff, and it's
Yes.
just
Well, and when you do watch that stuff, think about what you remember.
yeah.
Because a lot of times it's completely different.
keep forgetting, but Tim, remind me to bring up a topic for you to dive into. It happens to do it. It just so happens to deal with Alice and rabbit holes.
Oh boy.
Okay.
My gosh.
So before we wrap this up, I want to thank all of our new subscribers. We've had a rash of them today. It's been awesome. I think we've had like 65 subscribers today. So thank you for subscribing. Hit us content there that you're not going to find on this page. Am I frozen again?
On all the social medias.
On the social medias, all of them.
All the socials.
Oh, and merch. We
Am I
have
back?
merch, you guys.
We got the merch. We got a Teespring shop. Decon does all our art for our show.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think you're back, Colleen.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. SOS.
Okay, good God.
Sorry, I broke your cover.
Dang it, I don't know what's happening here.
Who cares?
I'm gonna get that new Wi-Fi extender because I'm not dealing with this anymore. Yeah, so Patreon, we have so much content on Patreon. I think we have about 60 or so videos up there. There's stuff that you're not going to find here. Some of the true crime we do is too graphic to do for YouTube. But we have funny stuff. We have spooky kids shows. Dirty Birdie, I got to upload your video, but you do some content. Decon does content. We're all kicking out content constantly. So for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can have all of this content. And
Yeah.
it never goes away. And I am frozen again. Am I
You can
frozen
hang out with
again?
all us weirdos on Patreon.
That's right.
Okay.
You
I
can
think
freeze
that's
with the
it.
best of us.
That's right.
All right. We're going to sign off before my computer catches on fire. So,
That's right.
thanks,
And
everybody.
remember, guys, always look both ways when you
Before
cross
you
the
cross
nightmare road.
Nightmare Road.
Thanks for having me.
Yay.